As you know, on this show, we have reported on multiple deadly encounters recently between authorities and people with mental health conditions. Now it's really putting a spotlight on how to handle when someone might be having a crisis. In New Jersey, body cam video shows an officer shooting and killing Victoria Lee just last month. Police were responding to a call from her brother that she was experiencing a mental health episode and holding a knife. And in Illinois, authorities say a sheriff's deputy fatally shot Sonia Massey after she called 911 to report a possible prowler at her home. Nero Feliciano joins us now. She's a psychotherapist and co-founder of the mental health group Integrative Counseling and Wellness. Nero, it is always good to see you. Can you walk us through some of the questions folks are having right now, starting with, when someone in your family is having a mental health crisis and you are concerned about their safety or perhaps the safety of other relatives around them, what is the best course of action?
Thank you so much for covering this, Vicki. You know, it's been on my heart. So one, when we know someone has a mental health crisis, we want to plan in advance. We want to contact their provider, their therapist, and educate ourselves on to what to do if the worst case arises. Learn how to de-escalate an incident, and also know who do you have nearby, neighbors and friends who can also step in and de-escalate in case there is help needed.
Nero, that's great advice. What are some of the other alternatives? Because sometimes people feel like they are in an emergency situation, even if they have done some of the pre-planning you just recommended. If you need to call 911, what should you do?
So this is what I'm going to tell you, which is really important. In a mental health crisis, we want to call 988 first. 988, we know, is a suicide hotline, but it's also a mental health crisis hotline. And I actually called it yesterday because I've recommended it, but never actually called myself. The tone is completely different. They automatically refer you, if you're a veteran or LGBTQ community member, to the right support. And then you're connected, for everybody else, to a trained clinician. Now, they can also mediate a 911 call. They can facilitate a hospitalization, both voluntary and involuntary. And they're going to ask you the questions to get the information they need to then pass on to 911 to keep you safe. So for mental health crisis, we really want to utilize 988 first.
That is really good advice. I also see this other number on the screen, 211, Nero. When should you call that number?
So 211 is not if it's an acute emergency or crisis, but generally if you have mental health questions, again, if you know someone has a mental health issue in your family and you're trying to plan in advance, 211 is a great resource, and they will also connect you to support in the community for long-term or just an evaluation.
And I do want to make it clear, there are many instances when officers are responding to situations like this and they are able to de-escalate and it doesn't result in violence that ends up on television in this way. We know there are times people do call 911. If you're in a scenario like that, Nero, what is your advice for what people can do? What can they say? Is there specific information they should be telling the dispatcher before the officers arrive?
Absolutely. Oftentimes we call 911 if someone is hurt acutely, if there's a fire, those types of things. But if you are calling 911, if you know it's a mental health crisis, please say that. Say if there's a threat, if the person who needs the help is armed, is there any history of violence? And you want to give a good description and the age of the person when you provide that information to 911. And as you said, there are many situations that are very helpful.
988. Thank you so much, psychotherapist Nero Feliciano. We so appreciate you walking us through some actionable steps that we can take that could save a life. Thank you so much, Nero.
My pleasure.